Hey everybody, welcome back. HSC Podcast. We'll just get out 01 or should we say 101? Because that's a lot more to say each time.
I would just go a one.
It's 01 of the 100 start date 101. This is Captain Picard. Uh, so yeah, 101. That's a lot. That's so we're getting up there. Got Big Box Steve on the mic, got the Big Smooth, and no Fresh West tonight. So just be the two. If you're listening on YouTube, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Appreciate everybody listening on Spotify as well. Get a lot of those lately. So this week, it's a little bit of a light week. So we're gonna have another top five this week. We like to throw the top fives in when it's a lighter week because we just talked about this. Next week's going to be huge, but there's still some stuff happening right now. And so let's get into NFL first. And I have a couple trivias for you.
Okay.
It helps when you have two people, but you can blame Wes for not being here. So
I guess I
looking at
win
the
no matter what.
yeah, looking at the draft, it looks like it's going to go quarterback 1, 2, 3, right?
Yep.
So back in history of quarterback 1, 2, 3, since the Super Bowl era, like how many times do you think that's happened? Quarterback 1, 2, 3.
I'm trying to remember. So
So we're talking about,
what was
40,
the
60,
when Darnold
65
was
years or whatever.
drafted, right? Wasn't that a 1, 2, 3 year?
Could have been.
Um, it wasn't the Trubisky wasn't because Solomon Thomas went too.
Yeah.
Gosh, were we talking
So
the
yeah,
'80s
this is
here?
a tough one. So I'll give you the years. Let's start there. 1971, which wouldn't expect you to get. 1999.
Is that Tim Couch, Achilles Smith?
Oh, it's funny that you got a Keeley in that one because that was the one I couldn't get.
I'm trying to think of the third one though. Was it McNabb? Is that McNabb's
A
year?
Keeley was third.
Was he third?
Yeah.
Well, I
It
just
went
remember him because he was an Oregon Duck and he just
yeah,
came
so Keeley went third. Yeah, so it was Couch, McNabb, Keeley.
Achilles Smith, yeah.
So that was 99. The one of the newer ones was kind of tough, which was 2021.
I'm trying to even remember what year this is. So okay, so last year it was 2023. So the 2022 draft was just trying to remember draft picks. So 2021 was that the COVID draft where like you didn't get a chance to see people. So we got Zach Wilson went to
Yeah, number one was easy, dude.
well, again, Trey Lance went three, didn't he?
You have the two harder of the ones done.
Was that's a Trevor Lawrence year?
Yeah, it's a Trevor Lawrence year.
Okay.
So Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, I don't think they have a hard time believing Trey Lance went three in that.
Right.
So when
Well,
you
because remember,
traditionally
wasn't
look
it that
at it,
was people thought Mac Jones would go three, right?
right. And then San Francisco gave Miami
Mm-hmm.
Tyreek Hill
Pretty
in
much.
essence.
Yeah. And Bradley Chubb.
Right. But yeah, that was a tough one. Like, because I don't think people realize Trey Lance went that high or right there too. But yeah, that was recent. 71. Oh, geez, now I don't remember who it was.
Was that
It was
Bradshaw?
like some Dan Portantini or Horntini or something like that. It's one weird
Dan
name.
Pastorini?
Pastorini, that's his name. And then Archie Manning went two, and
Let's look here. Who went three? Oh,
no, number one. It was
Plunkett
number
went
one.
one.
Plunkett, Manning, Pastorini. But
Yeah,
then 99 and then 2021. So
that's
every 20 years.
here's the funny thing. Okay, so Plunkett went one, Manning went two, Pastorini went three. Plunkett never made a Pro Bowl, but has two Super Bowl victories.
Right.
The other two have never won.
Well, and the both were just trash.
Well, Pastorini was okay. I mean, Archie was okay. He just played for a bad team. Pastorini got traded to the Raiders, I believe, for Stabler.
Doesn't sound like a good trade to me.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they traded Pastorini to the Raiders in exchange for Stabler, but Stabler was kind of done. And then Pastorini broke his leg,
Yeah.
and then they went with backup Jim Plunkett.
Tom Brady was done too, and then he won another Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, Kenny Stabler was done. I mean, he took him to the playoffs, but they had Earl Campbell too.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty good.
But
Good
think of
running
that, the
back.
Raiders had the number one and number three pick on their team. And yeah, that's kind of funny.
So uh, that was a kind of a draft question because we're going to talk about draft. Oh, I do have one more that. So I did this trivia. This one was tough, but we're talking about this season.
I don't know.
So current season, 1,000 yard receivers.
How many are there? Like 14?
So there's a bunch. Let's just see if you get the top eight.
Okay. Mike Evans.
He's nine actually.
Oh, really? Okay. Amon St. Brown.
He's three.
Um, Ayuk.
Seven.
CeeDee Lamb is one,
CeeDee
right?
Lamb two.
Oh, two. Why can't I mean? Oh, Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, obviously Tyreek Hill one.
Okay. So I got one, two, and three.
Yeah, one, two, three, and seven.
Okay, I'm just teams. Diggs didn't have a good year.
Did do over 1,000 though, so he was on the total list, just not the top
Okay.
eight.
Well, Devontae did over 1,000 too, probably.
Yeah, but was he in the top eight?
I know he wasn't. He did 1,000, but yeah, he wasn't.
Yeah,
That's how I mean. It's like everyone can do 1,000 now
Yeah,
because both of
1144.
those guys had down years. Um, let's look.
So you got Tyreek
Cla-
at one, CD at two, St. Brown at three.
McLaurin.
No,
Oh wow, is he even
not he
out?
did 1,000, not in the top
Okay.
eight though. He was like
Oh, Puka
16th.
Nakua.
Puka Nacua number four.
No, I'm from the Cardinals. No,
So
maybe DK.
you got three left. You got number five, six, and eight.
Yeah,
Number
I feel like
five
they're.
was 1,456 yards.
I feel like most of them are in the NFC.
Two of the three left were in the NFC.
Yeah. Let's look. Okay. I don't think that. Let's the Giants know. Where did it Commander Eagle? AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. Number 5.
Um, let's see. South. Already did Mike Evans. No one from the Saints. No one from the
You
Panthers.
gotta get the last NFC guy.
Well, I'm trying to. Okay, so no, it's not the South. Um, well, even with being hurt, was it Jefferson?
Nope. He did do a
No.
thousand though being hurt.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking about my team, so you're not gonna get that one.
Oh gosh, DJ Moore.
DJ Moore.
So I need one AFC,
The
huh?
last one's in the AFC. It's a tough one, but
Oh, Amari Cooper?
no, he's
Really?
close. It's not far away. But think about fantasy points. You would have done well if you drafted this guy
Or-
because you would have got him later, a lot later in the draft.
Well, I thought
This was the toughest one for me.
even though he was hurt, Tank Dell.
You're on the right team, just the
Oh,
wrong guy. Yeah.
Nico
Nico.
Collins.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the hardest one. And then you go to your normals and Mike Evans and Keenan Allen and Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs, right?
See, that's what's crazy.
But
So Keenan Allen and Jamar Chase both were hurt so
right.
many games, but they still got 1,000 yards.
Oh, 1,214 for
Jeez.
Jamar Chase and 1,243 for Keenan Allen. That's pretty high
Yeah.
considering how long he was hurt.
Yeah. And then he didn't have Herbert for most of the season too.
Right. Yeah, so it was a long list of 1,000-yard receivers. It's kind of tough to get, but even the top 8, that was rough. So Nico Collins, I don't know. I would never have got that one. So now I didn't have that one. You know what's surprising when I watched this? Most people missed Amon St. Brown too.
Oh, well, that's one of
Or
my favorites.
they didn't miss him. It's like he was a really late pick. And you're like, who was number 3? Who had number 3 in yards? It was
Mm,
St. Brown.
Man, one of the best receivers in the NFL that no one talks about,
Yeah.
obviously.
So circling back to the first trivia question, we're talking about the 3 quarterbacks going. So at this point, what you're looking at is Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, probably 1, 2, 3.
Who knows? It could be the top 4 picks could be quarterbacks.
Right. Well, now with JJ McCarthy,
I
and the
told
way
you,
they're touting him,
watch the combine for JJ
right?
McCarthy, and that's what happened. Now it's like,
Well, so what's interesting about that? Does it help? I mean, obviously it helps JJ McCarthy for Caleb and Drake and Jaden not to throw because it's easy for you to look like the best or the strongest arm when those 3 guys aren't throwing.
right.
You're throwing if you're telling me because outside of Spencer Rattler, who has a legitimate strong arm, the other quarterbacks you're throwing against, you're not going to look like you have a much stronger arm because it's not like Bo Nix is a world beater on arm strength, right? He's an accuracy thrower. Penix kind
Penix
of
did okay. He started off slow, but came on. That's the thing is like to me when it was McCarthy, Penix, and Nix, the combine was big for them, and it looks like more that Nix is the odd man out of those 3 now.
right. Well, and he also threw some terrible balls. So that's the case where you almost God, and I hate to because I'm a system guy. I like how part of the system is you graduate college, you go to the combine, and you go through the process. I'm a system guy. And then you got these guys out there breaking the system. They're like, no, we're not going to do it. You're like, oh, it's because you're Gen Z guys, you know. But the reality is what happens. Like the reality is for them, it can only hurt them
Yeah.
because you're not going to go from number one to what number one. Like if you're already number one, the only way for you to go is down.
Right. And that's the thing is like, is the, let's say, you go out there, we kind of, it's been known since like last year that Caleb Williams is going number one, right?
Right.
I don't even
Well,
think the combine would hurt him doing that. I mean,
but it does though. Like that's the only thing that can hurt you, right? The only thing that
right.
can hurt you is going out and getting evaluated. And now people are saying, well, now you might not be as good because you made four bad passes.
Right. Well, and that's why most of the quarterbacks that already know that they're good only throw on their pro day because they already know what they're throwing and they
Right.
practice it.
They probably,
And they
and
have
then,
their guys.
but then you have guys like JJ who everybody questioned him. He's still probably going to be a first round draft pick, right? Now you're throwing out him being a top 10, maybe top five.
Yeah. Well, because there's so many teams desperate for a quarterback. We've gone
Right.
through this. You got the top three. Now you got the Giants. You got the Falcons. You got the Vikings. You got the Broncos. You got the Raiders. Just right there, that's what, eight teams wanting a quarterback, and you only got three in the draft
Right.
that are top three. So you're gonna it's gonna be McCarthy is gonna get drafted in the top 10. Because even if those first three go, then one of those other teams is gonna get itching, gonna have to trade up to get him.
Yeah. But well, and that's fine. But when you look at this, the whole combine thing, right? It's really not for the top picks.
No.
It's
It's for
for
Xavier
the
Worthy.
yeah, it's for Xavier Worthy, the middle ground guys who you're not 100% sure about, but then he runs a 4.2 140, breaks the record, right?
Yeah.
Now, guess what? Now you're interested in him.
Now
Or
he's going in the first round of the Chiefs.
but it works opposite, I think, in Bo Nix's situation. Because after I watched Bo Nix's combine, I'd be less interested in him
Right.
than I was when he was coming out of college. And you were like, all the touchdown passes, the way he played his last season at Oregon, he probably would have been best sitting out.
Yeah, well,
But
that's the
then,
thing is you go into college and you have this system. And so so Bo Nix, like back when Mariota came out, um, I watched him at Oregon. I'm like, he's not going to be that good. He's not accurate enough.
right,
And then he still goes number two overall. And I mean, he had an okay career at Tennessee. I don't, I think he's still, but he would have better than Tannehill, but
well, his
they moved
injuries,
on.
though, it's hard to judge someone because injuries change careers.
But like Mariota was much more athletic and talented than Nix too.
Yeah.
So that's why he had a
Oh,
higher upside.
oh, you're comparing Mariota to Knicks?
Well, I'm just looking like
I don't even
Nix
think that's a
doesn't,
comparison.
well, I don't think Nix wows me too much. And that's why
No.
the combine was his chance to wow. And
Right,
then
right,
people
right.
are like, oh, he needs, only certain teams will want him because of their, you know what I mean,
Don't you
system.
think he would have been better off not doing the combine though?
I don't know because then you got Penix and you see, you're in that group like May.
Oh, so you have to compete with the guys in your group because if you don't,
They'll move up ahead of you and
they
you'll
have
be
a
like,
chance. They have a chance to,
right,
unless they do what Knicks did and not complete a 40-yard pass.
right. Well, and that's the thing is like why like Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and Caleb Williams. They're like, well, we're set at one, two, three.
Right, right, right.
So if we don't do anything, we're good.
So talk about the top three for a second. I mean, you just said it. You said they're set at one, two, and three, right? So I saw a really good argument for Jaden Daniels, done through game clips, where they took game clips. Here's what he's doing in this situation. Here's how he looks in the pocket and throwing deep balls and where the placement of the ball was. Like it was a really good argument for Jaden Daniels being the best prospect in this year's draft. I mean, I have a hard time arguing with it because when you look at him like running the ball and in the open field, that's a huge upside, right? You already get plus points for that. So if you're comparing Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels as a runner, I don't think it's close.
And that's why if he would have ran his 40, he might have jumped him.
Right. Like he goes out there, runs a 4.35, which he's capable of.
The only thing I have on him, and don't get me wrong, I want the Raiders to trade up and get him. That's who I want. But you did have Malik Neighbors and Brian you
Right,
had
right, right,
two
right.
first round receivers you're throwing the ball to, right? I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So I guess you say, wait, that makes Drake May better because he didn't have good receivers? Because USC, Oklahoma, like they've had good
Oh
receivers.
yeah.
So Caleb Williams can't be a victim of that.
No.
Only Drake
He's
May
just a
can.
victim of a bad defense.
But I'm saying Drake May could claim no good receivers.
Right. Well, you can look at Drake May's tape and be more like, well, his accuracy numbers and this would have been better if he'd had better players
Better
to throw
receiver.
to.
That's what I mean. Like Drake May can fall into that category. Caleb
Right.
Williams can't make that same argument
No.
because you have great players. You've had the talent around you.
But they aren't. Well, you had Addison last year, right? But
Well, you got Rice and Addison. Like
right, but Rice isn't a first round talent.
uh, they're trying to claim he is.
I
You
don't
see
know.
that? Did you see that? You didn't see that in the interview with
No.
Rice and Caleb Williams. Yeah, they were talking about it. Just it went back and forth about how good he was and how many receptions he had with touchdowns. So it was pretty funny.
Well, and that's where like Penix, he did great in the combine to counteract the fact that he has three first or second round talent receivers, right?
Right,
He had
right.
three.
Well, yeah, I think Penix had more talent at receiver than anybody.
Yeah. Maybe not like what Ohio State, right?
I think USC at their worst with receiver talent is better than North Carolina at their best.
Right. Has there ever been a good like a Pro
Well,
Bowl receiver from North
yeah,
Carolina?
Josh Downs just came out. He was good.
Okay,
I mean, I'm
Josh
not saying he's
Downs.
Pro Bowl, but he just came out. I mean, there's a couple others. I have to dig a little deeper for those. But the point is that it doesn't matter. It's their high side is going to be the same as USC's low side. So my point was that Caleb Williams couldn't complain about talent around him. You have plenty of talent when you're at USC or Oklahoma
Right.
compared to especially compared to North Carolina. But Jaden Daniels, same thing. That's what you just said. Like you went to LSU, dude. You're gonna have super talented people playing with you at LSU.
I had to look it up. The most famous Tar Heel wide receiver, Hakeem Nicks.
Knicks. Oh, dude, I should have had that one. I knew that one. Yep, I keep Knicks.
But that's the best receiver.
I mean, he was good. Come
He
on, he
was
was good.
decent, but I mean, what he wouldn't even be top 10 Alabama receiver
No, that I mean
or
that's the whole
USC.
point. That was the whole point of the conversation. So just circle back for a second. would you ever, is there ever a scenario where what they're saying is Jaden Daniels could go number one?
I don't think a team would have the guts to do that, right? Because that's like, think about it. It was like when Peyton Manning and Leaf came out, and everyone was like, are the Colts going to take Leaf?
Yeah, right. You're like, no, that'd be the
But I
stupidest
mean,
thing
think about
ever.
that. That's what it's kind of like. It's like
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying Caleb Williams is Peyton Manning, but you're not going to take,
No, but that's the reason Bryce Young went one last year. That's the same reason. Because everybody thought Bryce Young was a safe pick.
right.
So it just happened last year, right?
But don't you think if Caleb Williams would have come out last year, he would have been number one?
I think it'd been a tougher time, but at he was playing better because he then you don't have the bad last season at USC,
Right.
right? All you have is the last good season. So probably, yeah, he probably would have went number one. Not as much as like I think they're thinking of him now, though, right? I think last year Bryce Young's probably still a super close number one to him.
Right.
Where right now, I don't think he was considering anybody else.
Well, even us talking last year, we were like, Bryce Young or is it Stroud? You know what I mean? It wasn't like we were like, oh, Bryce Young's the best quarterback in this draft class, right?
Yeah, but he was still the almost guaranteed number one.
Right. But he also is like, he's too short. He's not,
Right. Yeah, like Baker Mayfield still went number
Mhm.
one.
Yeah,
Kyler
that turned
Murray
out for the Browns.
still went number one.
Yeah.
So maybe people got to learn about these short quarterbacks.
Yeah.
No, but I don't think anybody ever, most people didn't consider taking Stroud over Bryce Young. I don't think that is a big thing, except if you're Merrill Hodge.
Merrill picked Stroud.
No, yeah, he did. But
See, Merrill does know some stuff, I guess.
it's funny they did a
He,
whole
he'll,
video going back about him on the ones he missed on too. So he's missed on plenty, as he called, Johnny Manziel and this one. He's missed on a lot too.
well, he's not a fan of, I think, any quarterback in this.
No, he does not like Caleb Williams for sure. So that's a tough one. I just think that whoever gets Jaden Daniels, I think is going to have the most talented pick of the draft.
Right. And
Whether, yeah,
I just hope the Patriots trade out of that pick because we can't
well,
have him going to the Patriots.
no, I don't even think that's the Patriots type of guy. But
Not a Boston type of
he's gonna be
guy.
such a big hit or miss, right? Either he gets put into the right scenario or he doesn't.
That's why he needs to go to the Raiders. It's the perfect, well,
Right.
that's the perfect scenario. It's the guy who recruited him out of high school, like he
Right.
knows him. He already knows all his weaknesses and strengths.
Yeah.
He's Jaden
You're
Daniels would already have bought into the program.
you're gonna have to trade up for him though.
Oh, I know.
Here, hold on a second. I'll be right back.
Give up the farm. I don't
Entertain
care.
the crowd.
Yeah, I'd give up 4 number ones to move up to get Jaden Daniels. I didn't care. The Raiders draft picks at number 1 have been so bad anyway. Who cares? Just trade them all. Trade 2 number ones, 2 twos, 2 threes, just something. Yeah. I'm very high on Jaden Daniels. And I'm ranting now about Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. Well, so so two things. So you're talking about the draft picks, right? Yeah, the Raiders have not done well on draft picks in for a long time.
Well, they're
So
beside because Josh Jacobs doesn't count because he's a running back. The only other good draft first round pick they've had, like I don't know how long, is Colton Miller. That's it.
right. And who's Colt Miller?
Well, he is a bookend left tackle, but
Not a Pro Bowl guy.
yeah, he is. Colton Miller's a Pro Bowl guy. He's a top he's a top
Colt,
five left tackle.
Colt Miller.
Yeah.
I'm just saying he's not if another team was to say here's our best number ones, I don't think
Right.
he's top on that list.
Well, that's the thing is but he was also like the 13th, 14th pick overall too.
Yeah, and as many picks as they had, and you go back a long time for the Raiders for some of these number one picks.
God, it's been like 20 years and it's
Dude,
been like Colton
well,
Miller and
because
Khalil Mack.
there's
And
like
that was
a
it.
there's an all or nothing attitude that they have, which is admirable, but it's also like, really? You drafted Darius Hayward Bay at 8? What was it? Was it 8?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It was early.
That was when Al
It could
was,
have been 4.
huh?
It could have been 4. Was it 4 or 3? Darius
No,
Hayward Bay? Like was it 8 was my first impression, but
it was not like three.
I think it was 8. It might have been 8.
But I think he was the first receiver drafted or
No,
second,
I
seventh overall.
7th overall. That's crazy. But yeah, so here's the problem. I don't think at this point you can get Jaden Daniels at 3. I think if you're trying to trade up for Daniels, you have to go to 2.
Yeah, but I don't think the Commanders will let you go to two unless they trade with the Bears and then the Bears trade down
Right.
again.
Trade down again. Well, because if you're the Commanders, why wouldn't you take Jaden Daniels at 2?
Well, they want Drake May. There's they want one of the quarterbacks. You and I think they should not worry about quarterback
Right.
and get as much assets as possible. But they're stupid and they're going to draft a quarterback and they're going to ruin him.
But I'm not going to draft. So personally, and maybe this is just me as an outside, thinking GM, I'm not drafting Drake May over Jaden Daniels.
Well,
What's
then the
what's what is
then
what's the upside
well then
of
the Raiders aren't going to be able to trade to two because then the Commanders will take him.
well,
Jaden
that's what I'm
Daniels at
saying is
two.
that now you have to go to 2. So what if the Bears trade the 1 to 2 and then trade the 2 to the next team? Could you imagine the haul? I don't even care how much you got to pay to keep Justin Fields.
Right.
If you can trade down from 2 and then 2 to the next one who wants to get Jaden Daniels, how much of a haul could they get from that? What, 6 picks?
Probably what at least three ones and three
Right.
twos.
Probably 6. Yeah, probably 3 1s, 3 2s, 6 picks
And then they'll
minimum.
probably have to give maybe like a third, but then they give up a fifth. You know what I mean?
Fifth,
One of
right? A
those.
couple random trades, right? But you're gonna now tell me that you're not gonna take 6 picks, first and second round picks, and then say, let's just keep Justin Fields.
Well, think about I mean, and we don't know. It is a crapshoot. But if you told the Chiefs, hey, we'll give you 6 draft picks for this rookie Mahomes, and you do something like that, and you're like, oh shoot, we suck
Yeah.
again. And because come on, let's be real. The defense is good for the Chiefs, but Mahomes is the reason they've won Super
Right.
Bowls.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing is like Caleb Williams, are we getting the next Mahomes? And for like the Bears, if you put Mahomes on the Bears, they're going to win a Super Bowl, right? So why not try and
No.
get Caleb Williams?
Not if you hired Luke Getzey.
Getsy went to the Raiders.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying the Bears had Mahomes,
Right. No, I'm
which
saying
they
if they
could have had
had
instead of Trubisky, but well, that's another story.
the offensive coordinators and coaches they had at that time would have ruined Mahomes as well.
That's true.
That's the problem. The problem is like you could have put in, we can bring in Bernard King. We're hitting two and we're out. Good old white man can't jump. It doesn't matter who you bring in if you got the really bad coaching, like bad offensive coordinators, bad head coaches for the last. I mean, we go back to Lovey Smith. That's probably the last time you had a decent head coach.
But didn't care about the offense.
Well, he was focused on defense. I get it. That was his
When
scheme.
was the Bears ever have a prolific offense?
No, that they never. The most successful Bears coaches always focused on defense,
Right.
right? Even so, what I'm saying is that I don't care all the coaches you look at, whether they were offensive focused or defensive focused. Since Lovey Smith, we have not had a good coach. We've had slightly good coordinators from time to time, but they weren't allowed to play within their scheme because they had
Right.
to go within the head coach, right? So we haven't had a good offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, or head coach since Lovey Smith since 2007.
Yeah.
And so I don't care if Mahomes came in. Oh, you say you missed on Mahomes. They would have ruined Mahomes. Mahomes would be like a washout second string quarterback at this point if he had got drafted by the Bears.
Well, the Chiefs wouldn't be good though, then that would have been good for me.
You're like, awesome. You're like, dang, Bears should have drafted him. But you know what I'm saying? Like, Mahomes got drafted the perfect situation for him. And that's the way things work out sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why it's like, hey, oh, the guy's super lucky. Yeah, he was. He got drafted in the perfect situation. He got to sit, play, learn behind Andy Reid
Right.
and Alex Smith before you even had to
Well,
go in.
look at it. It's like think about Tim Couch
Right.
or Joey Harrington, right? Like they got put in like the worst teams
Yeah.
ever.
Hey, go play on the second worst team in the league. Good luck. No offensive line. You better have a good completion percentage. Come on, dude.
Yeah.
Who was talking about? Keyshawn Johnson was talking about this because he was actually a pretty big victim of it. Remember, he got drafted, went to the Jets, and he was talking about his best quarterback. And he said the best quarterback that he had for his whole career was Vinny Testaverde. Not the
Old man
first
Vinny
time, not the first time when he played with him at Jets,
with
but
the
the
Dallas
second time
Cowboys.
with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And now Keyshawn was back to the Cowboys, right? So the best quarterback you got to play within your whole career was old Vinny back to Dallas, probably 40 years old. And you've already circled a couple teams.
Well, because someone got hurt, right, in Dallas, and that's why Vinny
Right.
played.
Yeah. But even the quarterback he had before Vinny, which I can't remember right now, but was not good. Like it's funny because you're
Well, he
like,
had
oh
Brad Johnson was one. I don't know if he was ever with the Jets with Pennington.
no, I don't think so. Because he was talking about Vinny, I think as the last quarterback he had. at the Jets. But I mean, we're not talking about like this guy had very good quarterbacks.
Well, there hasn't ever, I mean, Pennington is the best Jets quarterback ever. So, I mean, we're not talking
the,
the Jets have a high ceiling of quarterback.
the the low ceiling. Well, but he was also talking about like the coaches too, which was the point of why I was comparing it to what we were talking about. He also felt like he was under a lot of offensive coordinators who, didn't fit the way he played. They were playing a different scheme
Right.
that, really didn't work out for him. So it doesn't matter who you are, because I don't know if you remember Keyshawn coming out of college, but I've thought at that time he'd be the greatest receiver that we'd ever see.
Right.
Because I watched a
But
lot of Keyshawn Johnson in college.
the problem with Keyshawn is he never adapted. He only wanted to do it his way. Throw me the damn ball. Right? I mean, remember he was there at the Jets and Wayne Corbett was having a good career there. And then he went to Tampa with Gruden. Oh, Gruden just, has Tim Brown and Jerry Rice getting millions of yards under him.
Right.
And Keyshawn wants to argue and complain with the Gruden. It's like, so some of it is Keyshawn. He's great talent, but it's like you got to adapt too.
Yeah, a little. No, I don't disagree with that. I'm just talking about the fit of players to their
Right.
schemes.
Well,
Does
Tom
does
Brady.
personality and attitude and the way you're willing, of course, like those are big things. But it's like if I'm USC and Reggie Bush comes to my team, my whole game plan is going to adapt to Reggie Bush getting the ball in space.
Right.
You know, which I would have felt like if I, regardless of Keyshawn's problems attitude wise, if I draft that guy, I'm gonna make an offense or coordinate an offense to get him the ball at some point.
Right.
So that's scheme is kind of what I'm talking about. When you look at Bryce Young and CJ Stroud this year, everyone wants to say CJ Stroud is way better than Bryce Young, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's
yes. Any
because Bryce Young has no players to throw the ball to.
Well, there you go, right? So now we put Bryce Young, and you say, is he a victim of the Panthers? Not just them being a bad team, but them also not having a very good passing scheme.
Right. But isn't it well, or he got fired, didn't he? It was Doug Peterson, right? Wasn't that who it
For
was?
for Carolina,
Yeah.
yeah.
Not Doug Peter or Frank Reich.
No, Frank Reich is the coach. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, they fired him. Doug Peterson's Jacksonville still, right?
yeah. Yes, yeah. Frank Reich was the one who got fired because they had. So Carolina has that very aggressive owner, though,
Right. He's an idiot.
right? Who wants to be a big part of like the team, but he has no idea what's happening in
Yeah.
the NFL. Yeah, I mean, I guess then you look at so here's a big question. You look at Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Everybody is at this time saying, "Oh, you have a bust in Bryce Young as your number one pick." Why not look at Caleb Williams that same way? Like if he goes into the wrong system, he'll be a bust too.
Right. But I mean, if you look, the Bears have DJ Moore. The Commanders have McLaurin. The Commanders actually have some talented skill players.
Right,
Now, if he goes to the Patriots, that's where like the Patriots are devoid of any skill positions. And I'm sorry, Wes isn't on this, but I feel like the Patriots ruined Mac Jones.
right. Yeah, it took away all his weapons.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
they were talking about, oh, it was there was the teams with the worst separation by wide receivers, and the top two were the Panthers and the Patriots. Like
right.
the receivers couldn't get open.
Yeah, well, they don't have a lot of notable receivers on those two teams.
Right. Well, even
Like
Juju was one of the
Adam
worst to get
Thielen.
open. Huh?
Adam Thielen is the top receiver
Yeah.
of all those teams.
Well, the Patriots had Juju.
Yeah, so it just makes me wonder, like, how is that? How many guys that happen to? But this could be like a Jaden Daniels situation if maybe he goes to the Patriots.
Well, maybe he needs to pull an Elway or an Eli Manning
Yeah,
and be like, I'm not playing for you.
right. Yeah, I kind of feel like the Patriots are in position to ruin one of those top three quarterbacks' careers.
Yep. Because they're going to have too much hubris being like, oh, we've had Tom Brady. We're the
Right.
greatest. And they're like, no, you guys suck now.
Well, they're not willing to change up their offensive scheme. Even Mac Jones is a fairly mobile dude, but yet, they have no movement in their offense. They don't have him, getting out of the pocket, things like that. You imagine if it doesn't matter where you get Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jane Daniels, all those guys could move around the pocket.
Right. Well, even McCarthy, Penix, and Nix, right? All
Right.
six of them can.
But the Patriots have their admittedly gone through a big overhaul. You don't have that Bill Belichick obviously, and Mayo is he's a player, right? He played in the
Right.
league. He's actually a really good player. He reminds me of what D'Amico Ryan's what is, right? So could Mayo be a D'Amico Ryan's?
D'Amico had lots of coordinator experience, though.
Yeah,
Mayo is actually just more like Antonio Pierce. They're both guys that are
right,
position
right.
coaches. That's why, like the Patriots, like you're talking about the Bears with all the Patriots need their cupboard is bare. They
Oh
need
yeah,
to restock.
the Patriots. I mean, I could see them being the worst team for the next couple years.
Yeah. And if they take a quarterback, it's not going to learn from history. Think about it. Like Couch and Harrington, all these guys got sacked so many times
Right.
and it ruined their careers.
But you can't have no offensive line and no position players.
Right.
When you
Well,
have both of those things, that kills you.
right. And that's the thing. It's like stockpile. Bailey Zappi's okay, right?
Right.
Have him out there for a few years and then see what you can do. Get Arch in a few years, right?
So here's one of the problems, and I'm not as a Bears fan, but just as I think about what we're just talking about, why wouldn't the Bears do that same thing? Because everybody's like, oh well, get rid of Fields, you don't have to pay him his big contract, right? But instead of that, you replace like five or six of your starters with these high end rookies that you don't have to re-sign them
But I
as you
feel
go
like the
forward. Like,
Bears are just a quarterback away from making noise. And think about it. They already have another top 10 pick. So they're going to
right.
get Caleb Williams in either one of the top receivers or one of the top tackles. I mean,
Yeah,
what?
I guess
They
it's
almost made the playoffs. They were, I
right.
mean,
Yeah, they weren't terribly far away. I mean, and when you think about not record, but you think about how the games played, yes, they were actually a lot closer than people realize. So, well, also knowing that is like if you can get four or five, maybe six, like we talked about earlier, picks, why wouldn't you do that?
I mean, it's the same thing as white. It's a crapshoot.
Right.
The Bears have a top five cap. They have top five in cap room already.
Yeah.
So you get Caleb Williams. You don't have to worry about Justin Fields. You get draft capital. You get a third or a second for Justin Fields. Um, so that's a cheap player right there. You get your tackle, or you get one of the receivers. Shoot, you get the tackle. Second round, you can get one of the receivers.
Right.
Then you like sign high price free agents. Chris Jones is going to be out there. Christian Wilkins. There's going to be a lot of players out there. I mean, Calvin Ridley's out there.
Yeah, there's a ton. There's definitely lots of good talent in free agency, that's for sure.
And I mean, what you put like a Chris Jones on that defensive line, then that all of a sudden that defense looks really good, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's but now you're talking about you went with Caleb Williams, so you didn't take any of the additional draft capital that you could have had, or you maybe could have had. I'm not saying you definitely, but a lot of teams are willing to move up for that pick. So it is a crapshoot when you think about that because there's four or five first rounds or second rounders, maybe early second rounders you could have got that you could have five or six or four or five Pro Bowlers.
Right. But you also has Fields shown enough to know that he's capable starting quarterback. That's the issue. He hasn't
Right.
really. He's had flashes, but he's not consistent at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see that definitely. Yeah. I mean, obviously, as a Bears fan, like I look at things a little bit differently, but if you look at it financially, you take Caleb Williams. If you look at it, if you're a gambling man, I think you keep Justin Fields and you go for the I'm going to take go for four or five picks and maybe two of them hit, right?
Problem with that is, does Pace have a job to make those picks?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden he trades Caleb Williams, Justin Fields doesn't do very well, they don't make the playoffs, Caleb Williams wins Rookie of the Year, then you're like, oh, you're going to get fired,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so you're not, so if you're Pace, you're not going to take that chance because you're going to take the safe bet and you're going to be like to the owner, well, Caleb Williams is the number one
Right,
prospect.
right. Had to play
Can't
it
miss.
safe.
And then if Caleb Williams sucks, I'm like, well, I mean, that's who we had to take. He
Right,
can,
right, right.
but if he trades him and then he turns out to be amazing, then he's done. He's not even going to get another job ever. That all is going to be told is the guy that traded Caleb Williams.
Right. It's like the guy who didn't draft Michael Jordan.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's a tough one because I think as I evaluate the quarterbacks, I don't think there's a huge difference between the three of them. I know everybody's kind of postured Caleb Williams is number one, but I don't think he's that much better than Drake May or Jaden Daniels in any sense. So so then maybe it's like you miss if you miss on any of the top three,
right.
you know? So that's a I mean, it's I cannot wait for the draft and these trades to happen because there's so much speculation around it, and you go back and forth with what looks like a good idea, what's not a good idea, and how it plays out different ways, you know?
Well, we'll know a lot more next week in free agency. So we'll know
Right.
where Kirk Cousins goes. We'll know where Russell Wilson goes. We'll know if the Bears trade Justin Fields, right?
I think Kirk Cousins is a big one. It's interesting where he might end up. I think Minnesota's made it pretty clear that, they obviously don't want him, right?
Well, and Justin Jefferson's made it pretty clear that he wants him there. So that might be an interesting thing too.
Right. You might lose Jefferson at the same time.
Yeah, they might have to trade him too, which would be crazy. Um,
Depends on what you
Rico.
get. You never know, dude. Look at the way like Jordan Addison's been playing for them.
Well, there you go, Steve. Inter division trade. You trade the number one pick. You get Justin Jefferson in their pick. How about that?
Oh, I would take that in a heartbeat. They can have Caleb Williams. You're gonna give me Justin Jefferson? I don't. That's kind of one of the problems I have. I don't think these players are valued enough, right? Like you're like, oh, this quarterback's great, but you don't factor in the way Travis Kelsey played for Patrick Mahomes. You're like,
Right.
Patrick Mahomes is great. And you're like, yeah, how about Kelsey, who, like, he was the one that broke off the route back off this way when he was rolling right and he saw his quarterback, in trouble.
Right.
All you care about is the sidearm pass Mahomes made to Kelsey, who happened to break it off and fall back as quarterback, right? Like, as, a good player.
Yeah, you don't know how many hating the Chiefs as much as I do times that has happened where you
Oh,
think you got Mahomes and all of a sudden Kelsey's wide open. And I'm like, how the
right.
hell did Kelsey get wide open?
But it's not because what Mahomes did, it's because what Kelsey did.
Right.
And so that's a big part of it.
And I have
uh,
to admit, I mean, a little off top, but the whole Taylor Swift thing has kind of, I think people forget how great Travis Kelsey is. You know what I mean?
right, right,
They're
right,
concentrating on all this stuff. And it's like, dude, the dude's probably the greatest catching tight end of all time.
right. And well, but he did have a down year this year, so
Yeah.
everybody wants to jump on him and
Oh, but then he like all of a sudden became awesome again in the playoffs,
right.
right? I
He's a
mean,
little distracted. Yeah, and so I don't take anything away from Patrick Mahomes because I think he's a great quarterback, and I'd love to have him on my team. But I think they're also you get an added benefit when you have those players doing the things they're doing, like Kelsey does, to break off routes and to meet up with his quarterback. When you put guys in bad situations, they don't have the line, they don't have the talent around the receivers. I don't care how talented that person is or coming out of college is, they're probably not going to be successful.
right.
So that's why the Bears, I think Justin Fields in particular, hasn't been that successful. Like they haven't set him up to win.
Right.
So with all that said, I still think the Bears are taking Caleb number one.
It
Could they
must be
get a lot
nice to
for him?
have the number one pick 2 years ago, Steve.
Right. Was that the Cleveland? Was the basketball team that had that recently?
Yeah, wasn't it
The Cavs, they had the
Kyrie and then Anthony Bennett?
right. But they
Well,
messed
my
that one up.
favorite is the Magic, right?
All right, right.
Shaq and then Penny.
Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, well, we'll get out of the sports. We'll get into the top five here because we got a good one. Going to go Sylvester Stallone movies. You give it a start. I'll be right back.
Well, I believe this is going to be an interesting topic for me and Steve because I'm guaranteed we're probably going to have close to the same list. Um, I'm pretty sure this one's on Steve's list, but I'm taking it at number 5, and that is the Kurt Russell Sylvester Stallone classic Tango and Cash. I think the Tango and Cash showed off lots of Stallone's comedic side to him, working off of Kurt Russell, which was a great fit. So
Man, yeah, I knew you were gonna go with Tango and Cash.
I figured you'd go with Tango and Cash too.
So I had Tango and Cash between 5 and 6 with Assassins.
Okay.
So I went back and forth between Tango Cash and Assassins. Overall, Tango Cash was a better movie. I think Antonio Banderas killed it. Assassins, which really helped out Stallone. So it's not always about like just Stallone.
Kurt
For
Russell killed
me,
it in Tango and Cash.
no, Tango Cash is a better movie. I think the all around acting around Assassins helped out Sty in this one. That's why I put Assassins at 5 instead of Tango and Cash.
Whoa.
So that was my switch. But the problem is that when you get to the top 5, like Tango Cash could be one. That's when I look at the rest of them, I think they're all like you could switch out any of those,
Right.
right? All
Yeah, I
right.
think I
Well,
had started and I had him at 3, had it at 3, and then I moved it down to
right.
5 after I.
Well, I had 10. I put down 10 and I moved them all around. And so that's when I said when I got down to 5 and 6, those were the two left. So I'll give you my number 4, which I mean, it was a little bit, I was sold a little bit on this, but I do like it. And I'm putting Cliffhanger here at number 4.
Mhm.
But I gotta admit, like Holly sold me a little bit up on it too.
I don't
So
have
like
either of
she liked
those.
number 1 and I was like number 6. So we met in the middle somewhere at number 4. Cliffhanger.
And it's hard because there's so many of them. But I went with the first for this, and I'm going First Blood, Rambo First Blood as my number 4, because that's the actual movie. You know what I mean? Like it's a movie about someone from ex-military coming through and like getting harassed, and it's like got a social commentary on it. It's not it's once you get in the other Rambos, it's about shooting and killing. This one
Right, right.
actually has more of a deeper meaning to it.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily put this at number 1.
I will admit though, Rambo, the one where he's in Myanmar, is pretty awesome too.
Right,
And he takes the Gatling gun and kills probably 100 soldiers in one
right.
session. So, but yeah,
No, I agree. For me, it's the best Rambo of all.
yeah,
But I guess when you watch the movie, especially the first half of it, it's not really like Rambo-esque, right? You know what I
right.
mean? Like, because it's more of like they're building the story. That's when you're talking about like his background and him getting arrested because he's just walking down the street and he's not from the town and he's got a military jacket on. And at
And I
that
think he's like
time,
a
they were
bum, and
very
yeah, he's
well, they were also like against the war, right? So, like if you were military, you were a bad person.
And he's like, I was just walking through. I just
Right.
wanted to get
You
home.
know, so there was a lot of that in the first half of the movie, but I think you're right. That's what makes the movie better, which is why I have that at number three, Rambo First Blood. There's something about the hunting scene where they're like chasing him up the mountain. They're, hunting him down. It's almost like you're hunting down a dog, and you're like, this is how we're treating veterans and humans in general, but our veterans. That when you think about how much that happened when these guys came back from Vietnam, specifically in Korean War and things like that, I mean, that's kind of crazy.
Right.
And
Well, and
I
it's
think
also good
that's a big
because
part of the movie.
it's like the adage of the hunters, but but what happens when the thing you're hunting can actually fight you back?
Right. Well, and it's almost like taken for granted. Like you don't realize what you have until it's not there.
Right.
And you don't respect what you have because it's there. If it wasn't there, then you'd be screwed and you'd know what you didn't have. But because it's there, you like just, yeah, is what it is.
Right. Yeah. Because well, one of the scenes where they handcuff him and throw soap on him and
Yeah,
spray him down with
delouse him.
water.
Right.
Yeah. It's like dehumanizing.
Right, right. So that part about Ram, because there's all the Rambos I think are good. I like the Rambos. I think it's a great series. But I think what you talked about earlier was because you got that like 50-50 part of it of building the character, doing all that. I put it three for that reason.
Well, I think my three must be your either number one or two. So I'm going to the future on this one. Going with Demolition Man.
At three.
Yes, my third. Because they think about it, we're living in that society right now
Oh
from Demolition
jeez.
Man. Looking for the three seashells.
Uh, and Taco Bell is the most glamorous corporation in the world.
Yep. And then, they abolish all music and only can have jingles because they don't want to offend anyone.
Right, right.
The thing with Demolition Man too is it's hard. It's like you were talking about Assassins. Because Wesley Snipes
Yeah,
really
kills it. Kills it.
kills it in this. I mean, Stallone does great too, but it's like Snipes gets to be the fun villain.
Yeah, it's the time when second billing gave first rate acting.
Right.
Because if you had to say who's better in this movie, Stallone or Snipes, you'd be like Snipes, obviously,
Right.
obviously.
I
But
mean,
who gets top billing for the movie?
yeah, you got a young Sandra Bullock in it, a young
Right,
Benjamin Bratt, Dennis Leary. Every
right.
scene he's in steals the show.
Oh, I think Dennis Leary is the best part.
Yeah.
Well, because he's not like a small part either. He's the whole resistance leader,
Right.
right? That's I think that's a classic case of the big actor in the movie did well, played a good part, can't take anything away from him, but because of what you have around you, elevated that movie to
Right.
better than most of yours. So number two, I have Rocky, first one here.
Okay.
It's same thing. It's very close to Rambo for me in the story and how it's original. And if you're just trying to watch a movie to see like some boxing and some blood, like this isn't the movie for you. Like this movie's got so much other story to it.
Right.
and I guess maybe people miss that when they go back like I want to watch Rocky, and they just think I'm just going to see this boxer,
Well, it won Best Picture, right? Or
right? Well,
yeah,
because there was a ton of other there was it's like a drama, like
right.
it's not your traditional sports movie.
I mean, spoiler alert, even though it was from like 1977. The thing that makes it so great is that he doesn't win, but it is a win for him. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Sometimes when you win, you lose, and when you lose, you win.
Yes.
And he lost and he won.
And another great, I mean, rest in peace, Carl Weathers. He did such a great job as Apollo.
Yeah, yeah. Through all the movies, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's more than just a sports movie, which is I think why it makes it better. And some people argue that some of the other Rockies are better because there's so much more in the boxing part.
I feel like
Like if
with
you're
Rocky, it's like whatever mood you're in. But they're
right, but
all are good except the Tommy Morrison one. But
right, but Rocky 4, right, which people consider the best Rocky. Many people. I've heard this a lot. What do you get? You get a lot of boxing, a lot of fighting, a lot of training,
you know,
a lot of like sports, right? And if that's what you're into, you're gonna think Rocky 4 is better than Rocky 1. Because I mean, think about it. Well, think about Rocky 4. And as an athlete, that's one of the best boxing movies you're gonna see.
right.
Where Rocky 1, you're like, what is all this you know, drama stuff happening here? So I'm gonna go with Rocky 1 because the movie's more in depth, and that's my number two.
Here's the curveball in the whole list, Steve. My number two is one of his best acting performances, and that is Copland.
Copland, yeah, yep. It's hard to argue.
Predictable, huh, Steve?
No, I mean I knew you were gonna put Copland in there. I didn't put it in there, but I knew you were going to.
Because Copland is where he shows his acting chops.
Right.
Because he did a lot of action movies. Now, Rocky, he showed acting chops, but then after that, after First Blood and Rocky, he started to be like, okay, screw this. No one's hiring me for anything but action movies. So I'm just going to lean on into the action movies.
Right, right.
And Copland was his tour de force to come back to acting. It bombed, but it shouldn't have because it was an amazing movie. I
But
mean, he act,
those movies come back though.
yeah,
Like it doesn't matter. Like Armageddon got the worst reviews ever. And then like who doesn't like Armageddon?
right. Well, the Copland got good reviews. It's just people didn't go and watch it.
Yeah,
I mean, he went out, he acted against De Niro and Ray Liotta. He held his own the entire
right.
movie. That's why I put it at two, because it showed that Stallone was more than just an action guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's probably a little overshadowed, but you
Well,
know,
I mean, if you look at who was all in that movie too, it's
right.
crazy.
So my number one, you already said it, and it might be a surprise, but Demolition Man for me, and it is because of who was in it with him and how they played their part. So it's not all him, but he plays the part perfectly. It's a really good movie, and you could not cast, I don't think, anyone else to play that part. Like if you watch that movie and you said, let's put someone else in that part for the whole movie, you'd be like, that's not right.
Right.
And so it was probably the best part I've seen him play, top to bottom. He's slightly funny, which is weird for him. You're like, he makes you laugh a few times, which is kind of weird. And uh, plays a good part with against Wesley Snipes. So I moved it up, maybe against my better judgment, but I put it up there at number one.
Well, because you didn't want to compete with my number one, which was your number two, going the original Rocky.
Right.
And it was the same reason. I mean, you could put, because, Rocky one's the original, and that's why I went with it. And the ending was perfect because it's like, nowadays they would never do that ending. It would be like, well, he has to win.
Right.
No, it was perfect that
No, he has to lose because he's white.
yeah, but I mean, it was perfect because no, it's like, no, we don't have to have a story where he wins at the end. It's just him going out there and doing his best and showing that
Right.
he can do it. And then, in two, it was, I got to show that I can win. And then in three, it was, oh, I got too cocky.
Right.
Now I have to come back up. And I have my former rival training me. And then four is a revenge story. And then five was just stupid.
Yeah, five's bad.
And then he
So
redeemed himself with six.
of the four, so how do you rate them? One to four, one to four.
So it's so hard because it all depends on what kind of movie you want.
Right.
Um, if you're just talking, I'm doing one first. Then for me personally, I'm doing three second, four third, and two fourth.
Is that about quality or like what's your reasoning behind that
Well,
order?
well, three isn't as exciting as four because he kind of, he takes care of Mr. T pretty because
Right,
he
right.
plays the smart game. But I love three second bet. It's more of my guilty pleasure. I like three probably the best, but I enjoy one is the better movie. But three I
Mr.
love
T and Hulk
because
Hogan.
you got Lips, whatever his name is, beginning, but you got, Apollo's his friend now, and he's
Right.
training him. And you got the Eye of the Tiger, Rocky. It's the Eye of the Tiger, right? And you got that's like the greatest like hype song. Eye of the
Yeah, no, I mean three, I could be sold on three.
And then Mr. T was such a
Man, that's
good
tough.
bad guy.
It's
Clubber
really
Lang.
tough. It's really tough though to go over Ivan Drago.
I don't know. I mean, I get you. You got if he dies, he dies.
Dude, I mean, and he kills Apollo.
Yeah, that's true. But Clubber never fights Apollo.
But then he goes to Russia, dude, and then trains in the snow
He goes old
when,
school training. I
yeah, when the
know.
Russians and the electronics and all the, stuff. So,
If I can change and you
right,
can
right, right, right.
change.
Then we can all stop the Cold War.
Yep.
I
I
don't
don't know.
know. Man,
Clubber
that's
was so
tough.
good though.
It is. That's tough.
Well,
So,
Clubber kills Mick.
yeah, you're going one and three, then four, and then two.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that four and three. I mean, one, two, right? That's obviously one the best, two's the worst. Yeah,
Well, I could go
that's tough.
four and three are tough. I mean, it's all the mood you're into. I feel like Clubber was a more charismatic.
Right.
I mean, Dolph Lundgren was just really big and he just stood there and was like, ugh, right? I mean,
Yeah, he didn't have much of a personality, but his wife did.
Bridget Nielsen.
Yeah. She also looked like a Bond villain.
Well, we'll get into her when we do our Eddie Murphy top five, probably.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one, but I mean, it's hard not to put Rocky up there. Obviously, I have Rocky that too as well. Overall, I think you got Rocky and Rambo. That's two of his signatures. But I think he did some other good ones. We named them. We talk about Copland and Cliffhanger, Assassins. There's some other movies that it
Tango
wasn't
and
just all
Cash.
action. Tango and Cash, right? That weren't all action for him.
I will say this movie got panned, but I do have a little heart because it's just kind of a goofy comedy, and that's Oscar.
Oscar, yeah,
That's
yeah. I mean, it's not like that's not on your list of top 50, but I think that's all he's got. So,
yeah. Well, it's still better than Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
right. I mean, come on. It's pretty good.
You heard the story of how he did that, right?
No.
He wasn't going to do it, but Arnold played a prank and goes, like, put it out
Oh,
there that
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I do remember that now.
so then Stallone was like, no, I got to do it. I'll do it.
Yeah, right.
And
No, I
it's
do know
like,
what you're
still,
talking about.
and Schwarzenegger screwed him on that one.
Right. Because they were battling at that time, and he was like, tried to make him believe that he was going to do it. I do
Yeah,
remember that. But whatever, dude. What you got? Like a couple million out of it, dude? Not so bad.
probably.
Like, who cares?
I mean, Arnold did Kindergarten Cop, so you can't
How
really.
many bad Eddie Murphy movies are out there?
Oh gosh.
And he's still getting paid.
Yeah, I would go with what would be the worst? I guess we could do a top five Eddie Murphy and bottom five Eddie Murphy.
Well, he's got them both.
I will say though, with Eddie Murphy, I did not enjoy the second Coming to America at all.
Yeah.
I was pretty
Yeah.
disappointed in that one.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was like try to make a movie, then try to figure out how you're gonna put all the other characters in it
Yeah.
and just ruin your whole movie.
I
So
can't
instead of having
believe
actual plot, just keep pushing all old characters in there.
I can't believe none of us mentioned. I mean, we're not none of us are wearing a hat right now. And this is why we need Wes so he could turn his hat backwards. Do over the top.
Over the top, yeah. That was on Holly's list. Um, she would have put that in over Assassins, over Rambo. So she had over the top, Cliffhanger. As a couple of the top ones. I don't know. I'm pretty stuck with mine. Obviously, Rocky and Rambo were great franchises for him.
Well, the other one is the Expendables franchise.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
kind of I haven't seen even the last one.
But that's the same thing. Like you're with so many people in that
Right.
movie. Yeah, it's hard to stick out. But all right, well, that's a good top five. I don't know. I look at it and I almost forget putting Demolition Man at top one, but I do love that movie, so I'm gonna stick with
Yeah.
it.
I figured that would be your number one. Just like
Yeah.
you thought Copland would be in my top five.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised that you took Tango and Cash out of your top five, though.
Yeah. Uh, talk about Assassins, it's kind of that same type of movie where I really liked Antonio Banderas in it. So I think he helped, Stallone have a great movie.
Right. Well, and that's the opposite. So for me, it's because Kurt Russell does such a good job in Tango
Right.
and Cash.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, you can't take anything away from Tango and Cash. All right. So next week, though, we got uh free agency stuff happening. I think the tournaments start almost next week, so maybe the day after the conference tournaments start. So we'll talk about NCAA conference tournaments.
Yeah, they must because yeah, the last
Yeah, it looks like the first tournament starts on like the 12th.
gotcha.
So yeah, that's next week.
Yep.
And
See
we
if
might have to we
Marquette
have to
can come
double
back
up.
and beat UConn since they choked.
We might
Made me
have to
look
double
super
up on
bad.
podcast next week. Or we just have to wait till the conference tournaments finish and the selection tournament finishes.
Yeah,
Because we
my
got to
picks are
get,
looking Marquette losing to Creighton, and then Florida today
oh, just smashed 110,
smashed Alabama.
120 points.
Yeah, it was
Crazy.
like 18.
118?
No, it was they won by 18. Yeah, it was 105
Oh,
to 87.
105. 105. No, they broke 100. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, but we got to get our picks out to the audience, see how we do compared to last year. Last year was rough. Like the first year, we did pretty well.
Yeah.
Second year, not so good. So historically, looking at our averages, we should have a good year.
Right. Well, and we all know it's all crapshoot because what? I was in what percentile, like the top 3 percentile for the women's tournament last year, and I
Right.
had no idea what I was doing.
I mean, that's true, but we'd like to believe, and maybe that's just the arrogance in us, that if you like study it and you watch it and you do, you can analyze it. We like to believe that.
Yeah.
So let's stick with that belief because that's what makes people listen to us.
What was your team that like got knocked out real fast? It was a Final Four team, I think. Didn't you have one or West?
Oh, Iowa. Oh man, Iowa killed me 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row. Don't. I'm never betting on Iowa again.
That's with me in Houston, making it to the
Houston's ranked number
winning.
one right now, dude.
I know, but they always are ranked high, and then they choke in like the Elite Eight.
All right. We'll see. I don't know. I gotta think Houston's on their way to a Final Four.
Probably, but well, they had well, someone did like their bracketology, and I forgot. I was like, ooh, that would be a tough. See if I can find it. Of course, now I can't find
Well,
it.
I think you might have Purdue, Houston, North Carolina,
They got UConn, the
UConn.
one, and in that bracket, this is it's not true, but in that bracket they have UNC as a 2 and Kansas as a 3.
Wow, that's tough.
And then this other one, it's Purdue 1, Baylor 2, Alabama 3, Creighton 4. And then you have
Yeah,
Houston 1, Marquette 2, Duke 3, Kentucky 4. And then the other one is Tennessee is a 1, Arizona is a 2, Iowa State is a 3, and BYU is a 4.
right. Hmm.
So they got, yeah, right now they got, and this is showing Purdue, Houston, UConn, Tennessee, and then it's UNC and Arizona. Like
Right.
those 6 teams battling. Well, Purdue's 26-3, Houston's 26-3, and UConn's 25-3. So those three are probably guaranteed one seeds. The other three teams are all 23-6. So
Right. Well, the problem is with the brackets, it's harder to pick until you see, where each seed's laid out.
right.
Because sometimes there's multiple teams in the same bracket that you think are going to go to the Final Four.
Right. It's always well, don't worry, Steve. I just saw one of the fourth team out, like they're saying not gonna make it is Iowa. So you won't have to
Good,
worry.
good. Well, I moved on from Iowa. It's just like Wes and the Texans.
And
Well,
yeah,
what's that?
oh, this is the last year of the Pac-12 too, and
Right.
sadly, right now they're only projecting three teams from the Pac-12 to
No,
make
it
it.
looks rough in the Pac-12 right now.
Yeah,
Like
Arizona, Washington
Arizona,
State, and Utah.
I mean, and even of those, Arizona's the only contender.
Right.
Like, if you said one team of the Pac-12 could even contend for like an elite eight, that's pretty rough. Because I don't see any of those teams being better than that.
Right.
I think Arizona makes it to the eight, maybe. That's the highest Pac-12 team goes to the Elite Eight, maybe Arizona. Otherwise, they don't look good.
So how about like have you seen the guy from Indiana State?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh my gosh. Most dangerous guy in the league.
I know, it's awesome.
Dude, it's so crazy. It's crazy. It just makes me wonder how it's going to look and maybe this makes me sound biased, but a Big 12 or an SEC game, like you're playing at Indiana State.
But I mean, the thing is look at when Bird was at Indiana State. They weren't a good team, but Bird was amazing. And that's all you need for
Right.
tournament games. Is one player that's amazing.
Right. But the difference is like I don't think when Bird played that the athleticism across the board was like it was now, where like you go to a team in the Big 12 or the SEC or something like that, and you get five great athletes.
Although remember, what was it? What was the I want to say was it Grand Canyon or what was the one that had like all the guys that could dunk and run down the court? Like gold. Don't you remember that team? They made it to like the Elite Eight, but they had nobody that was tall. They were all like 6'6", but they all could like
Mm-hmm.
run down the court and dunk.
Was that recently?
It was in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I think I know. I remember.
Let me look. It's got to be one of the top upsets.
Yeah, well, so
And then they made a run.
that's pretty
Florida Gulf Coast.
Florida Gulf Coast. Yes, I do remember them.
But then wasn't that year. Where was it? Let's see, the Florida Gulf. But yeah, that wasn't the one I just showed. It was Florida Gulf Coast beat Georgetown, but that was like in 2013.
Or was it Florida Atlantic?
No, it was Florida Gulf Coast there. Um, where was it? I got to see what year it was.
Yeah, I feel like it wasn't that long ago.
13, but they also made.
But don't you still also feel like even with that level of talent, like you're still only going to make it so far?
Man, I guess maybe I was wrong. It was the 2013 team.
That was a
They
long
were known
time
as
ago.
Dunk. They were known as
Jeez.
Dunk City or Florida Dunk Coast, and they made it to the.
I know. I remember that like it was yesterday, and that
I
was
know.
11
Now it's
years
like, oh God,
ago.
that was 10,
That
11
was
years ago.
11 years ago.
They made the
Come
Sweet
on,
16
dude.
that year.
I know, dude. I can literally picture it in my mind. And you're telling me it was 11 years ago.
I, I
Like
could
I
have sworn
forgot to
it was
do
like a few
laundry
years ago.
yesterday. I can
Oh,
remember do laundry yesterday, but I'm like, remember that Florida Gulf Coast team? Man, they were so good. Who was drafted in 1999? Like, what's wrong with us?
we know what we need to know. We don't need to know
Yeah,
about when we did
yeah, it's
laundry.
crazy. But so inherently, though, today in today's sports, and I don't think this is unique to college football or college basketball. I think it's very common though in the beneath pro level that these teams, and you talk about Indiana State, and they have a great player. Let's say they didn't have this guy who's big and glasses and looks funny, but they had a bird who was amazing. You still would run into that over athleticism at these other schools. So yeah, you've got one really good player, and that helps a lot, and that gets you to maybe the 16, maybe the 8, sometimes the 4, but championship teams are ran through those systems.
Right.
You have, or at least you have a better chance when you're going through that, right? It's like Alabama has a better chance of winning the national football championship.
Right. But I feel like in basketball, it's a little different though.
It is because there's less players for sure,
Yeah. And you can have a Marquette back when it had like Dwayne Wade and make a huge run.
right? But he wasn't their only good player,
No, they had, well, I know they had other NBA players on that team.
right? So you got to have a couple, and Indiana State's not that good overall as far as the players, and this one guy plays pretty well, but and I don't know, maybe he'll surprise us in the tournament and dominate some of these what would you would think are more athletic players.
I mean, it's in a good division, isn't it? Like Indiana State, aren't they?
Well, I don't
Uh,
think they're horrible. No.
is it the It's not the MAC. I think it had, well, it has Murray State in it, who's not,
Yeah.
I mean, they're bad right now, but in years past they weren't. Was it Ovale Valley?
Yeah, I know. And I get it. Like they're not bad, but it's not like you're ever going to compare them to like the ACC.
Right.
Right. So you're like Indiana State versus Duke. Like it doesn't matter how good Indiana State's player is. You're like Duke is probably going to win.
Right.
That's inherently the problem I have with and And I don't think that's impossible for any team. I don't know. I don't. I've watched a lot of this guy's games, man, and I don't see it. I guess I just don't see it in him. But yeah, he's scored all these points and getting all these stats. I'm like, dude, how? You're
Gotta
like
get the glasses.
a half version of Luka Doncic. Like he's not even Doncic. He's like half a Doncic.
Oh yeah, Missouri Valley. Yeah, I mean,
If you put Luka Doncic in 50% speed, you'd have this guy.
right.
That'd be the same player. But he just keeps making these shots, and it's crazy. But even with like, I don't remember old like Christian Leitner, right? Even at that time, you were like, this guy's not the dude. Like, he's not the athletic
Right.
jumper, dunker, but he still made the shots,
Well,
right?
I'm just looking. So Indiana State is in the Missouri Valley. And in tournaments past, if I name these teams, you're like, oh yeah, they were trouble. Um, Belmont, right?
Right,
Northern Iowa, Murray State, Valparaiso,
right.
Drake.
No, Western Kentucky.
No, that's not this one.
Well, those are tough teams for sure.
Yeah, like
But
this
what?
year it's just Indiana State and Drake are good. And that's where I'm like, Valparaiso, man. Remember Valparaiso was killing it for like
Right,
a
right. Yeah, killing it for them is like you got a 16 seed and won a game.
yeah, but like Valpo and stuff, they're making Sweet 16s, Elite Eights.
Not too much. Not too much. I mean, I guess that it just comes back to like, okay, then you play like a Kansas or a Kentucky or a Duke or a North Carolina.
I mean, it's different though, because in football, yeah, if you're like Valparaiso playing Alabama, you have no chance whatsoever.
Right.
But we've seen UNC or UConn or Duke lose to one of these teams.
Sure. But then you got to do it three more times
Right.
to get to the and win the national championship. So how many of those low ranked teams have we seen win the tournament?
Well, I think what UNLV was the last non.
91? Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? So you're gonna pull up 50 years ago?
Well,
You're
no,
like,
I'm just saying
hey,
you're
remember
right.
50 years ago?
I'm saying you're right, but
No.
it's nice because you don't. It's also you like if it was so easy, we'd always pick the Final Four every year.
Yeah. No, no. But yeah, but you're also talking about a 64 now like a what 672 team tournament, right? That's you know what the odds are of picking that? The
Uh,
odds are not good. Even if you're taking the top teams every single time, like your odds are still not good.
right.
So yeah, you're like, hey, you didn't pick the tournament winner? Of course I didn't, because it's like winning the lottery.
Well, here's the thing too is what it's actually different than what you're saying back when it was like Indiana State or even when UNLV was. One seeds never lost, right? They never lost to a 16. That's
Yeah,
happened
it was
twice now
yeah,
in the
no, I
last.
think the power it's evened out for sure a little bit. I won't argue with that. So what you're saying is that ones aren't as far from 16s as they used to be, and I don't disagree with that. Because back years ago, it was really bad. It was like number one and number 16. Number one was scoring 100, and number 16 was scoring 30.
Right.
So it was like, hey, Duke won 130 to 30 today.
Right. That's how it used to be.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree with that. And so it's got that it's gotten closer. And a lot of that has to do with like other avenues to play basketball, and not as many players having to go through the college system, the what you've seen, 30, 40 years ago. I don't think that's changed a lot in college football, though. I think
No.
basketball's gotten way closer in that sense than football has.
Well, it's because, like you said, all you need is one or two really good players to slip through the cracks and go. Or, also what we've talked about, these mid-major teams, lower seeds, are all seniors probably and have been playing together for 4 years.
Right, right. Yeah, I think that's the big thing. I think the big thing is that, you get teams who are transition guys year after year to the NBA coming against some of these teams that played together for 4 years, gotten really good, and that's where you get some of these lower ranked or higher ranked in this case teams winning.
Can you imagine? So, like, think about Florida's back to back. Nowadays, they wouldn't have won back to back because Horford, Noah, and Brewer all would have gone to the
Right,
draft.
all the guys would have gone to the NBA. Right.
But they're like, screw it, we're coming back because they could
Yeah.
have gone to the draft that back then. But they're like, no, we're going to come back and win another national championship. Now they're not even
Well,
going to be there.
it wasn't even. It didn't feel like it was an option years and years ago. Right. It
Right.
just felt like you played your 4 years and then you went to the draft.
Well, it didn't really start big until you had the Fab Five, right?
Right.
And then they're like,
Yeah, I
well,
think I think that probably started it, right?
right. I mean, you had some like what Larry Johnson came out as junior and with the
It's
UNLV.
like you came out as a junior. Oh my God.
Right.
You know, that's crazy. Because before that, I mean, even up to that, it was like everybody played freshman to senior, and then that's how you had some of these amazing matchups and games and tournaments. Because you had all these guys that have been playing for 4 years. You're trying to win the tournament that you worked for 4 years. Like
Well,
who's
that's
working
why I kind
harder
of
than
feel like
those
the
guys?
NBA is on a downward. It's like, think about this. The Fab Five. If the Fab Five were nowadays, Jimmy King and Ray Jackson would be lottery picks,
Right.
right? I mean, but they had to go to college, and then everyone learned, they're not as good as the other three, right? I mean,
Well, and that's a system thing too.
well, they didn't even make it in the NBA at all. I don't even think they got drafted or were second rounders or
Yeah, I mean they've definitely played, but that's also the thing. It's like your confidence changes, your style changes, especially in that high school to college time period. That's when these guys are molded into their confidence. You never know what those guys could have been.
right. Well, it's
Maybe
like
they should have went to other schools.
if Zion would have stayed more than 1 year at Duke, maybe he wouldn't be so fat
Right.
and actually play.
Yeah, that's a horrible story. But I gotta say, um, I love March Madness. It's one of my favorite times of year. And I dig into basketball, college basketball, a little later in the season. So maybe I missed some of that early stuff. But right now, I mean, Houston looks really good.
Don't trust him.
And I mean, UConn, they were number one all year. Purdue looks great. So your number one seeds this year, like they look good. I could see you picking in your bracket number one down. If I was giving people advice, I'd say take your number ones down.
Yeah, I don't really, it's hard, but I kind of feel like none of them are like that great. I'd have to see what the matchups are. But I'm like, okay, so Purdue, how many times have I seen it in college? You have a dominant big man, and then you have a stupid guard who wants to shoot a bunch, and they don't give it to the dominant big man in March Madness and they lose. So that one's always weary. If they can just do what they're supposed to do, then yes, they'll make it to the Final Four.
Which has
Houston,
probably happened more times than not. I mean,
lately it
statistically,
hasn't. What
statistically,
Luca
if you
Garza, how'd he's
if
doing? How was he doing
if
in March
if you
Madness?
looked at it over like the history, right?
Yeah, what if you look over the last 10 years? It's different.
I would bet they were more successful than not,
Well, Luca Garza had a few years in a row that he didn't, and he was one
right?
of the most dominant big men in college. Illinois had a dominant big man. They choked that away, and they were like a 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah, I still think there's like 100 other teams that probably did well. So I mean, I think that it's a good thing for Purdue. Just saying, that's what I'm saying. Is I think it's a good thing. Yeah, could they choke? Sure, but I think it's a good thing to go in with one of the best big men and a good guard with him into the tournament.
As long as they keep doing what they're supposed to do and
Right.
not deviating from the plan.
It's a better thing than not.
Right.
Like I'd rather not. I'd rather be on the other end of it, of having that versus not going with that. So Houston and UConn. UConn has been pretty steady all year. I think they're a steady one. I think it's hard not to pick UConn.
Well, yeah, you got Houston, Purdue, and UConn are locked in, I'm pretty
Right.
sure. Unless UConn loses to Marquette and then looks really bad in the tournament or in the, yeah.
Well, I know it's hard to say sight unseen, but don't you what do you think about those? It just if we went those three teams, you don't know what the tournament's going to look like, but don't you look at the overall landscape of college basketball and say those are two of the or three of the best four teams in the country.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I have them in my final four?
Because it doesn't happen like that ever.
It doesn't happen ever.
Well, then, I mean, think about it. You
I mean,
talked about the
what are the
pedigrees,
odds? I don't know. What are the odds? Like
but
how often we're number ones in the final four?
like, look, let's say Purdue matches up against UNC or Kansas.
Right.
We're not number ones, but they're still good teams.
Right. You lose to a two or a three or a four for sure.
Yeah. I mean, what the year that UNC made it to the finals,
And just
everyone was like,
recently they were eighth. Yeah.
yeah, but everyone knew they were a good team. They just had
Right.
injuries and hadn't played well. And then all of a sudden, oh wow, oh yeah, they're one of the most talented teams in the country.
Right.
Make it to the finals.
But that was rare for an eight seed to make it to the
Yeah.
final. So again, odds
But they weren't
say
but they weren't an 8 seed. You know what I'm saying?
right, right,
Like
right. That
eye
I mean,
test wise.
and so that's the tough part, right? So that's where just looking at numbers doesn't help the average person doing a bracket, right?
Right.
Because if you that year I had UNC in the championship game. So that year they went in our bracket, I had them in the championship game because they were an eight seed, and I knew that, but most people don't if you hadn't watched their whole year.
Right.
So that's kind of the tough thing when it comes to this. And then you have people who are just betting off the mascot, or whatever, and getting perfect brackets. So
Yep. Guess your sister will do a bracket to beat us.
Right, right. Oh, you can guarantee we'll probably lose fantasy football next year. Guarantee that. So, I mean, I can't wait for the tournament. I'm excited for it. Um, that's my early. That's just my early prediction. My early prediction is that I think the one seeds will also be mostly your final four seeds. Um,
And
but you never know. Like anything can happen.
I will say only two will make it to the final four.
We don't even know what's going to happen in the
I know.
conference tournaments. Like you don't know what's going to happen at this point. The feeling that I have gotten from watching the last couple of weeks and studying everything, I feel like the top teams are the best teams. So, but we'll see what happens. I'm always rooting for UNC, so you never know. If they come out win a championship and I was wrong, I still win.
Yeah, it's true.
I still win. All right, well, we'll wrap it up there. So we had our top five slow movies. Talked a lot of NFL, like talking about the draft. Like this is gonna be huge. Like I just kind of want to get that over. And then next week we'll get into more NCAA basketball, free agency, good stuff. So
Well,
thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you're watching on YouTube. Thanks for listening on Spotify, podcast. See you next time.